understand that in order to have the possibility to create patterns and whatever work the technician has to do on the model, in order that work to fit in the mouth, you need a model of the mouth, right? So that's why we need models. This is an example of a model, the classic one, so to say. Here we have a pin. It's a simple pin, has nothing around it, just a pin in the plaster. That is the arch. The arch is regularly class 4 plaster. The abutments have been cut, separated, and the margin of the preparation has been made evident. This is the pin. The pin is attached to this class 4 plaster, and the base of the model is regularly class 3 plaster. The pin has a notch that allows it to sit exactly positioned on the model without rotation. You see some notches also made in the plaster that make it fit and avoid rotation of the abutment in the base. And on the back of the base, we see those places where we can press up the pin in order to remove the die from the base of the model. This the level of all this was done by trimming after the model has been cast. Now, how do we prepare this model? This is the impression. It has been disinfected. Now we will pour the plaster, the 4th grade plaster. But before this, we have cut all the margins that are not of interest for the future model. Using a scalpel, as you can see, the margin has been cut in order to get a uniform line like a plan of section. So all this having been done, we choose the pin. It has a retentive part that will be included in the 4th grade plaster. We take the pin and we press it in the impression material in the very place where we will have the abutment that will have to be mobilized, the die that will have to be mobilized. Yes, abutment generally is the name of the tooth that has been trimmed or prepared, and die is the correspondent on the model, as you can see here. So we place the pins in the elements that will have to be removable. So now we will be able to cast the plaster up to the margin. Then we leave it for 1 hour, 45 minutes to 1 hour to set. Then we will add to it, we'll place it into this model maker or model conformer that will allow us to obtain the base of the whole thing. So this is how we will place the two things one over the other. A premium variant of what we have seen before is the double pin that has an outer layer. You see, this pin has two, it's a double pin actually. One pin is bigger in diameter than the other, so it can only have one position in the holder. The holder sits in the base, so there is no possible movement of rotation or whatsoever. The stability is really perfect. So it has only one position on the model, really. This type of model you have to pay more for that. There is a kit to obtain this kit of pins, and there is a tool called Pindex. Because you cannot simply press these pins into the impression. You can't have it like this. You have to pour first the plaster, then this plaster will be trimmed, will be drilled exactly in the place where you want to have the pins, and for this you need the laser guidance, and then you glue the pins in. There's gonna be another movie that shows exactly how this model is produced. Because you see these pins will be glued into the plaster in a hole that has a slightly bigger diameter than the pin itself, than the retentive part of the pin. Actually, there is the technician puts a little bit of super glue or cyanoacrylate in order to fix the pin in place. Why do we need such removable dies? Well, this is a metal framework for metal ceramic restorations. It's actually a metal ceramic bridge, the framework of the bridge, and you see it here on the model. And we can easily, in this case, if the die is removable, we can see the nice and clean margin closure, the margin fit. So this is why, to check the perfect fit and to produce actually the perfect fit. And the position of this abutment of this die has to be very, very precise, because we want to check the contact points with the neighboring teeth. Now, this is a completely different concept of model. The base here is a plastic base with special retentions. This is a Accutrack-like system. This is the dental arch, as you can see, 4th grade plaster. And the base, it's a plastic base actually. It comes actually like this. It's a plastic, very hard plastic. And those winglets, they simply fix everything in place to make sure that the die has gone down all the way through, all the way down. So you see those retentions on both sides. So you have only one possible position of the segments in this base, plastic base. You only need one plaster to be poured. You simply put the plaster there in the impression. You put the same plaster into the tray, into the model tray, the base, right? And then you just flip one over the other and you get the result. It's very easy to cut this type of model. To cut the abutments, you can use either a saw or a disc. So you can do it manually or using a micromotor. And there is another type of model which is called the Zeisser model, but that is more complicated, and but this is the most precise, the Zeisser model. But it's kind of expensive, as we have mentioned. The Zeisser model has a plastic tray, and there is 2 pins for every die. In the case of that model, the Zeisser model. There's another variant of model, as you can see here, the plastic model, the printed, 3D printed plastic model, resin actually. It's very light, it doesn't break. So this is actually an alveolar model because you have the alveola complete and the die gets into the alveola. And this gives the possibility to control exactly the margin closure. The person who invented this type of model that keeps the gum around the die is Willy Geller. That's why the model is called Geller model. So alveolar models are called Geller models, according to the name of the inventor. You see, in the other case, the papilla, the gingival papilla, had to be cut. Here, you don't have to cut it. You have it there in place. You keep the gum around the tooth, but nevertheless, you can remove the die and see very nice the closure of your dental work, having the gum far from your die. Yeah, because you remove the die, but then you place it back and you see the relationship with the gum. The advantage of this type of models is that there are no contractions, like the plaster, which contracts or dilates after setting. It's very light. This type of abutment is really helpful. This type of die is really helpful in the proximal regions. You can very nicely see the papilla, the gingival papilla, so you know exactly how to produce the emergence profile. That is, the profile according to which the pattern, the wax pattern, or the ceramic emerges from the margin of the preparation to the contact point or to the vestibular surface, labial surface. So it's very easy to control. It's going to be very little to do, to retouch, to remodel once you have your pattern done. And yes, this is a very old type of model, the half arch model. The disadvantage is that you'd never know if the patient did bite correctly. You can check this. You can make sure that the patient did bite correctly, but it's not easy. And this is another type of articulator, yeah, for half arch. And you see the two arches will sit in position. You can imagine how this would work. So this is not very precise, but sometimes for fast working, for single teeth, they can be used. So you see, all these working models will need to have the antagonist, the model of the antagonists. So the opposing teeth, the opposing arch, in order to allow us to arrange everything correctly in occlusion.